And we are rolling. Everybody, thank you so much for jumping on today's interview. Roudy is here, Nassif. He's an expert in light. He's got his own philosophies on the light diet, and he is a massive biohacker and the co-founder of Viva Rays, a company that offers eco-friendly blue light blockers that are powered by the science of light and circadian rhythm. So we're going to go through sleep, how to maximize your sleep, how to get the most out of your sleep so you can feel rested the next day, which is going to help people's weight or recovery or mindset and depression. You have an incredible story, Roady, and you know, your background is in engineering and you have a deep passion for health and wellness. So after transforming your, you mentioned night owl habits and severe depression by changing your light diet, he's been able to actually follow a mission to elevate the world's light environment to a level of alignment with nature. So that's what I love about what you're doing. You're all about helping people get back in touch with nature, which I totally resonate with, enabling optimal sleep, rejuvenation, healing, and active recovery. We're going to be talking about healthy light versus unhealthy light, circadian rhythms, sleep cycle, and some more information on, you know, blue blockers and how they actually work and all the misinformation that people are told on, you know, how these actually work. So thank you so much for your time, and I'd love to just get into your story. How did you come to be doing this? You know, I love what you're creating online, and it's so great to have you here.
Yeah, totally. I guess my story starts when I was a kid, and back then I was labeled or diagnosed as ADHD. And going back then, I remember that as a kid, I did anything for the teacher to kick me out of class. And I highly disliked being in this room. And my intuition side wanted me to be outside in the sun. But then back then, I didn't understand. I didn't know how to articulate this. And growing up, I was struggling with a lot of self-destructive habits, from late night screen watching to binge eating at night to medicating my pain with smoking cannabis. I woke up every morning super tired, dragging myself out of bed and filled with negativity. And I actually struggled with a lot of depression, disorientation, and fogginess. So I went on and I tried several techniques in order to feel better. I saw a therapist for years. I tried several meditation techniques. I tried sleeping music. I saw different nutritionists and herbalists, and they all helped me plant great seeds, but nothing was really able to help me to reverse my nighttime habits and my depression. So I ended up feeling more stuck and more depressed than ever. And then, as if by chance, something amazing happened. I was home, desperately streaming the web and looking for some ways to heal my depression. And I stumbled upon an episode on YouTube called Artificial Light is Killing Us by Dr. Jack Kruse. And Dr. Kruse was explaining how the right type of light can heal you and the wrong type of light can make you ill, depressed, and obese. Well, this was a new concept to me. And since I was desperate to reverse my depression, I felt super eager to investigate and learn more about light and circadian rhythm. So the following day, I went on with my partner and we bought dozens of books about photobiology, circadian rhythm, and light. And we started learning about mitochondria, the power engines in our body that produces all of our energy. So, well, mitochondria produce more energy when charged with a lot of sunlight during the day, and it needs a lot of darkness to repair themselves at night. So the problem was that I was exposed to very little sunlight during the day, and I was sabotaging myself with late night screen and computer use, as well as artificial light exposure, which eventually destroyed my melatonin, the most important sleep hormone for mitochondria to repair itself. So I had to find a way to reverse this, and I decided to go off completely from the city on a 6 weeks farming adventure to a rural farm in Quebec. And I arrived there. We were working outdoors all day, and shortly after dusk, the only source of light was candlelight and firelight. Well, that was magical because only after 3 days, and for the first time in my life, I was able to sleep early. But not only this, I was able to wake up before the sunrise, sparkling with energy. I remember I was feeling alive after a long time. I was working outdoors all day, being productive, dancing, cooking, studying more about light and circadian rhythm. And most importantly, I was feeling much more connected to myself. And that's when I realized the secret to heal my depression and fatigue was to change the light that I'm exposed to on a daily basis. But there was a big problem for me and my partners, because the moment we got back to the city, we were bombarded by artificial light everywhere. So we actually felt trapped. And I started doing a lot of research because I was wanting the freedom to live in a modern world while not compromising my mental health and my sleep. So this has led me through an extensive research where I actually discovered about blue light blockers for the first time. And instantly I went on and I bought 3 orange glasses from an online company. Well, so basically they helped. But the problem was that after a while, we started experiencing unexplainable drops of energy. And at the time, we didn't know why. And as the time passed on and we were seeking mentoring from the world's leading experts in neuroscience, circadian rhythm, and light, I was actually able to develop a much deeper understanding. And I understood that our bodies and minds are hardwired to respond to the changing colors of light throughout the day when the sun moves naturally in the sky until it sets beyond the horizon when it's nighttime. So basically, the problem is that if you're blocking blue light in the same way all day, it's like you're living under a sun that is not changing its position in the sky, and it's emitting the same light all day. So can you imagine how destructive that could be to your sleep and rhythm and whatnot? Well, the problem was that 95% of the blue light blocking companies were offering a one-for-all solution. And most of them didn't provide any scientific testing, so to speak, to validate their claim. So that's when me, Joy, and Rose, my 2 other partners, decided to make our own. So we started experimenting in our own garage first, and we got amazing feedback from friends and family. So that's when we felt more into it, and we wanted to expand. So we went on and we started seeking mentoring from the world's leading experts in circadian rhythm and neuroscience, which was awesome because we were able to experiment and then send results and get a lot of feedback. But not only this, we were also very lucky to team up with some optic experts in British Columbia, and which gave us access to advanced equipment, so to speak, and several months of testing and experimenting and getting back and forth with our mentors. We're able to develop a whole system of artificial light glasses that provide a 24-hour protection, so to speak, but not only this, that provide a full alignment with nature's light. And so by that time, I fully healed my depression and my self-destructive habits at night. I was no longer a night owl that often felt depressed, and I was able to focus on my passions and my dreams, and to start actually putting together a program and some products that will help people improve their light diet, and that will help people sleep better and function better on a daily basis.
I love your story, man. Love your energy, love your vibe. This is awesome.
And I can completely relate, like, because I have OCD and ADHD as well. So is my best friend, actually. And one of the things that we've been really finding really hard lately, especially around, like, she's been struggling sleeping for so long. And that's been impacting her because she's a PT. She's superstar when it comes to jiu-jitsu and everything else. She's one of Australia's best leading females in jiu-jitsu. And one of the things that both her and I have struggled with is we're both completely, and we're surfers as well. So we're always in the sun or in the ocean whenever we can be. We're water babies. How can you explain, like, we've both gone through this period where we've just had rapid weight gain. I've now stripped it all off just by going to the sun and grounding myself every morning, seeing the sunlight, but then also getting off of the computer at a certain time during the day and really listening to when I can work. How do you think that impacts, sun, grounding and everything to your circadian rhythms, but also to your weight?
Right. Yeah. So light is fundamentally connected to our endocrine system and our autonomic nervous system through the hypothalamus, the part of the brain that actually controls the autonomic nervous system and the endocrine system. But basically, like when we talk about light, there's a full spectrum of wavelength, and every wavelength has its own effect and has its information that it shares with our body. So when you talk about your friend being out in the sun and still gaining weight, there's a lot of different variables, so to speak, that could be playing out. And one of which is whether she's getting a full-on light through her retinas, or whether she's mostly exposed to that light behind screens or behind lenses or behind sunglasses or behind windows. We could dive more into like the detrimental effect of that and how this actually could literally like reverse healthy light into destructive light. But then what I'd like to know from you is whether your friend is wearing sunglasses when she's out in the sun, and whether she's wearing any type of prescription glasses, and how does she usually get exposed to sunlight, in which ways?
So mainly through like sunbaking, she'll be in the sun, or just by surfing. And I've just been basically just walking in the sun for sunrise every morning. And then, yeah, she does wear sunglasses, and she does sometimes wear a hat as well.
I guess the other thing is like that time of the year last year would have been close to around winter time, so we're indoors more, especially like different parts of Australia is colder, so maybe like so just the habits of outdoors, and other habits that obviously come into play, but
right.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something super important there is her wearing sunglasses, and basically there's a lot of evidence about the importance of UV light with losing weight, and we're going to talk and dive much deeper into like UV light and how much UV is important. But the problem with sunglasses is anytime you're wearing any type of prescription or sunglasses, you're blocking 100% of UVA and UVB. And basically what that does is it inhibits your brain from knowing that there's UV in the environment. So for someone like you living in Australia where there's high UV index, it's actually much more dangerous to be out in the sun with sunglasses and exposing your skin to sunlight. And the reason why is anytime you're blocking 100% of the UV, your brain doesn't know that there is UV in the environment, and therefore your skin stops producing melanin. So basically you're more likely to burn if you're sitting out in the sun and inhibiting your brain from actually knowing that there's UV in the environment.
That makes so much sense. Yeah. Our body is going to adapt, and if we're protecting ourselves, so to speak, which is what we've been taught that sunglasses do, our body's not going to be given the information to go, oh, there's UVA, UVB, we got to produce more melanin, protect the body as a protective mechanism. That's really
That was seriously like my mind just went.
Sunglasses, prescriptions, got it.
I always forget to wear my sunglasses.
Yeah, that's a great thing to start forgetting, actually. and basically, like, this comes back, like the whole thing about UV light, which one of my intention with blue light is not to repeat the same reductionist thing. And I'm going to dive more into this. But the problem is back in the 1980s, there was a study run on monkeys in the University of Virginia. And the study went on, and they took some monkeys and they clamped their eyelids with big clamps, and they shone a lot of UV light into their eyes. And then the results were that these monkeys went blind, and which concluded that UV light causes degeneration of the retinas. Basically, the reason why this study is extremely unreasonable and it does not align with the reality of nature is because UV light does not come into our eyes in isolation. So there's a whole spectrum of light where like UV is on one side of the spectrum, and we have the reds and infrareds on the other side of the spectrum, which has been known to be regenerative to the eye. So when we are exposed to blue and UV, we're always exposed at the same times to reds and infrared. So even though UV and blue, because they're high frequency light, they could cause degeneration. However, when balanced out with the red and infrared, which are regenerative, they create a holistic system, so to speak, that is amazing to be exposed to. So this is one side of the story of why this study does not represent reality. And the other side is they shown high frequency UV that does not actually come into the earth, because it's often UVC is often filtered out by the horizon. We do not get any UVC onto the earth. So that to say that if you put your hand in a furnace, it's gonna burn, but you cannot avoid heat and let your house freeze because of that. We need heat in moderation, and it's the same with UV. It's a mineral, it's a vitamin, so to speak, and we need trace amounts of UV in our lives, but then we cannot eliminate it completely because it's gonna be like nature cannot create something that is ultimately destructive for us. It's the way we use it and the way we interpret it that is actually causing the harm.
Yeah, okay. That makes so much sense now, honestly. I'm so grateful that Zach's been able to bring you on here, because this makes a lot more sense to me. Because sometimes, like when Zach's telling me stuff, you kind of go, oh, like, stop being such an annoying boyfriend, but then it actually makes sense. So thank you for that.
Shut up about your light stuff, Zach.
I'm a designer, so I need to be on my
Put
computer.
these silly glasses on. He's like, fine.
But no, I am also grateful for that too. But say, for example, like I've actually found I was wearing prescription-based glasses, and I was getting a lot of migraines and things like that. And one thing I have been testing, because I also do obviously listen to Zach too. And I did start, like I have been going into sunlight and getting sunrise and everything a lot more recently, and grounding. But I found since I've been doing that, I haven't really needed my glasses. I haven't been experiencing eye strain or anything like that, or migraines. Yeah, so working on the computer as much as I do. And one of the reasons why I needed glasses was my retina. I think you're meant to have the sun shine in from opposite angles into your retina. But mine was shining in the same way, and that was causing the eye strain when sitting in front of the computer, from what I was explained. So if somebody has prescription-based glasses, how would they navigate through, letting in UV and everything else?
Yeah, well, the problem with prescription is most prescription block 100% of UV light. So unless someone could get prescription that do not filter UV completely, then the best advice would be for them like to remove the glasses from time to time and get fresh virgin light into their eyes. But then there's also a way for them to order prescription that do not block 100% of the UV. And in Viva Rays, we are working on a system as well where we're gonna start providing these glasses where people could order prescription lenses that do not block UV light at all. Now, the second version of Windows and whatnot is that anytime you're behind Windows, if you ever have an application or a spectral color mirror that measures the illumination, which is the lux or the brightness of light, you'll notice that anytime you're behind windows, the lux goes down by 2 to 3 times. But the problem there is that neuroscientists were recognizing that during the day, we actually need a lot of high lux, so high bright daytime. And it's this high bright light that actually reset our central clock in the morning and trigger our adrenal glands to release the healthy cortisol, adrenaline, and epinephrine. In other words, these are the hormones, when released in a healthy way, that will get you moving and that will get you focused, alert, and productive in good ways. The problem is many people think that they could get this sunlight behind windows. But then neuroscientist Andrew Huberman was talking about the fact that anytime we get this sunlight behind windows, we need 50 to 100 times more time to get the same effect and for the central clock to be triggered in the same way as if we were outdoors. So basically, for anyone who is getting sunlight behind windows, think about it twice. There's first the disadvantage that you're not getting any UV light, and you're getting actually a very disproportionate infrared light. But not only this, you need 50 to 100 times more time, longer times behind windows to be able to trigger your central clock.
I think this is a perfect time to actually talk about, like, most people, they're indoors, they're behind this glass. You don't think that it's taking away all the good stuff, but it's, you just mentioned. Then you know, for example, someone's in an office, so they've got fake light. So, you know, we call it blue light and things like this. But how do you describe, because the same lights that I used to have in the office are the same or similar lights to in the kitchen or in the bathroom or in my room. And so I've been, you know, using red light panels or, you know, candles and things like that at nighttime that are ideal. But what effect, or salt lamps, they're amazing. So what effect does these man-made LED blue light, so to speak, have on us? Because I feel like, okay, it's easy to fix the blue light to the eyes, right? You get a pair of glasses and whatnot. But when it comes to the light's affecting our skin. Is, you know, it's absorbing through our skin apparently too. So what impact does that light have on our body?
Well, there has been a study saying, mentioning that light is absorbed 70% through the eyes and 30% through the skin, through melanopsin, a light-sensitive protein that actually signals to our body about the environment. However, listening to the last podcast from Andrew Huberman, he was mentioning that this study got completely disregarded, and that actually the only pathway that triggers our central clock, which is responsible of telling our body about the time of the day, is through the eye brain pathway. So just I thought I'd share this with you because this is something I actually heard recently, and up until recently I've always thought about also like the skin being able to affect our central clock. Now,
right,
not to say that light.
So it's mainly the light. So that's why it's super important, if we're wanting to sleep well, get the adequate sunshine, because that's going to put us in the right rhythm. Because if we are you saying then getting that fake light at nighttime is really shifting up our sleeping cycle, so to speak? Right.
So like when we think about that, there's two fundamental things to think about. Okay. First, our retinal sensitivity during the day is very low. And what that means is that we need a lot of bright light during the day for our central clock to be reset in ways where we feel focused, alert, and productive, and in ways that we can optimize our wakefulness. Okay. Now, the opposite is true at night. Like the more hours we're spending in wakefulness, the more our retinal sensitivity becomes high, which means very low amount of light sources could actually trigger our central clock and confuse our brain about the time of the day. which at night will result in suppressing our melatonin, the sleep hormone, and resulting in us sleeping terribly and waking up feeling tired and whatnot. So, like to recap, we need a lot of light during the day, okay, and a lot of natural light first thing in the morning when the sun is at a low solar angle, so to speak. And then the opposite is true at night. We need zero light at night, so to speak, because this will confuse our clock. But then a very important piece of information, for so many years, we thought that blue light is actually what triggers our sensor clock and causes this confusion at night. But what we now know that it's not only blue light, but also green light. So, and I'll add to this piece of information that most of the blue light blocking glasses, they have actually developed their technology based on a study about melanopsin. So we can think of melanopsin as neurons in the eyes that take light information from the environment and they signal to our hypothalamus in the brain about the time of the day. And in return, this part of the brain control our nervous system, so our wake sleep cycles, our metabolism, the way we digest, etc. So having said so, what this study was about, they took these ganglion cells and they isolated them in plates and they shone light on them. And they were studying which frequency of light they are most sensitive to. The result came that they are most sensitive to blue light, but also to green light up to 560 nanometer in wavelength. And what this means is any blue or green light up to 560 nanometers at night will actually confuse the sensor clock and will start shifting your circadian rhythm day after day, which is not optimal because the body gets tired. The body wants a consistent rhythm, so to speak, so you could wake up with this like springness out of bed in the morning, feeling focused, productive, and all the great qualities of the wakefulness state. And at the opposite, at night, you want actually to to trigger your calmness state of the nervous system, which is also called the parasympathetic nervous system, that will allow you actually to wind down and to start preparing for what I call active recovery, which is a very important time of the day that will dictate how you will wake up the second morning. But then the problem with this study is that they didn't take in consideration that the eye is much more of a holistic system, so to speak. So melanopsin, these ganglion cells, also do not exist in isolation. They are connected to the other photoreceptors. And it turns out that these photoreceptors are actually triggered by bright light. So what that means, Zach, is that at night, even if you had your red panels on and you had 0 blue, 0 green, if these red panels are bright enough, they will still confuse your clock and they will still affect your sleep. So it's very important that anytime at night, you don't use any bright light, whether it's red, green, or blue, it will still affect the circadian rhythm. And this is exactly why we designed our nighttime glasses, not only to block blue and green light, but also to decrease the brightness by 12 to 15 times. So it provides more of a cave feeling, so to speak, which will allow us to go to sleep much easier and access this inner technology, so to speak, so we can wake up into our day feeling much more energized, much more productive, and much more creative.
That's really helped us out because we have this red light panel. It's a massive one and it's actually bright, and that we woke up this morning feeling a little bit like, a little bit groggy. And also, doing some interviews yesterday, I guess having that bit more stress and not winding down. We're very good at night, with salt lamps or things like that to not have too much.
We try to as much as possible.
We try to as much as possible, but yeah, I think that bright light aspect. When I was really strict, when I first started learning this over 1.5 years ago, I was so, I guess, regimented and disciplined with my light. I wouldn't have any light when the sun went down, phone off, and I was going to sleep at like 7:30, 8 o'clock, but waking up I was like, I felt literally so much more confident in who I was. I felt like I was superhuman, and I just had been lied to or confused or not educated on this type of stuff. And I was just putting up with how I was feeling. And I thought I was really healthy. But when I really got, I guess, this light diet topic, when I got that and I tweaked that, I became no food or exercise or anything that I did, or even, I didn't need coffee. I didn't need anything to stimulate me through the day. I was literally feeling superhuman, and I was like, wow. But then just life, socializing and having a relationship and doing things at nighttime is quite impossible and challenging. But I'm glad we're on the same page with that because sleep's super important. But I think it's something to maybe, challenge everybody, or a suggestion for everyone listening is for the next 30 days, do the light diet. Reach out to Roady here, his website as well, get some blue blockers. There's a 10% discount on them as well. It's at the bottom. The website is VIVARAYS, vivarays.com, and the code is ZAC10. It's my first ever coupon code plug. So that was fun. But it's also in here, and it'll be around this video somewhere for the recording.
And I think we probably will also have some people that are listening, that are founders as well, or like building something, and they're like, oh no, what do you mean? Yeah, entrepreneurs. But even so, like if you're not an entrepreneur and you're like, oh, what do you mean? Like, I have so much work to get done. Like if you work for one of the big 4 accounting firms and things like that, they end up trying to keep you in a lot more longer. And one of the things that I found, like I didn't know anything about light or anything until I met Zac. And when I was building my startup for the last 3.5 years, I got into this really good routine where I was getting up at 3:30, 4 a.m., but I was switching off at about 4:30 in the afternoon. So 4:30 in the afternoon, I would like get off my laptop, but I've already had so much of my day because I was waking up 3:34, right? So I've had my normal time in the day. I've spent every morning going for a run in the sunrise and everything else. So I was naturally doing everything what we're talking about now. But then as soon as it would hit, I'd have really early dinner at 5 o'clock, and then I wouldn't have any lights on in the house. I'd switch off all technology because I needed to switch off and disconnect, because I found that I was starting to live my life for my startup instead of me living my life and building my startup. So when I started to shift that, I just would spring out of bed every morning. Everybody would tell me on my social media, like, oh, you're so crazy. Like, are you trying to get attention for getting up at 3:30 in the morning? I say, no, I just like naturally am doing that. And it was half an hour before the sun was rising in Brisbane at that point. So it was just like naturally, my circadian rhythms were just perfectly in sync. But yeah, it's been different when I wake up sluggish because I'm so used to like bouncing out of bed like a bunny. But there was one thing that we touched on the other day. We're talking to a close friend of ours up in Noosa, and he was talking about purple light.
Right.
Because a lot of people, I guess, when it comes to the sun, we've been told that the sun will burn us and cause skin cancer, especially here in Australia. And when I was younger, I learned that in sunscreen, there's zinc oxide. So oxidation, and you're putting oxidation and chemicals straight on your skin. And it's the sunscreen that's then, actually causing more chemicals, but also the sunscreen blocks out another frequency of the sun. So you're getting just a refined version of the sun, which is like having refined sugar. And so sunscreen, I've never been one to have it. But what are some tips? Like if someone's wanting to get out in the sun, how can someone maximize that? Should they be grounding? Should they, because some people might go, the sun's amazing, and go out today and just get so burnt and pink, that might not be the best way to do it. So what are some tips if someone's like, okay, I want to get outside, I want to start integrating more sunlight into my body? What are some great routines or like habits that someone can start integrating now to get more of that healthy sun?
Yeah, for sure. So interestingly, when the sun is rising, there's no UV whatsoever, and it's very high in the blues and in infrared. But then what we now know is because of the nature of infrared and red, that they are regenerative. This light actually prepares our skin to be able to absorb the UVA and UVB later in the day without burning. But not only this, a very cool piece of information is that if we overdosed on sun, so to speak, and we got some damage somehow, that also when exposing ourselves to the setting sun and getting this infrared, that this infrared is designed by nature to repair any cellular damage that might have happened. But also we need to be smart about it. So we all have different types of skin, and we all have different lifestyles. So if someone, for instance, has lived all their life indoors and is not used to this high lux light from sunlight, they need to start reconditioning themselves slowly. So like if you're making a meal, and if you're cooking a meal on the oven, you don't want to crank up the heat right away. You want to gradually increase the heat so you have a good meal by the end of the day and you're not burning your meat. And it's the same with the skin. We need to be strategic. We need to be smart. We need to know, what works for us. So I ask people and I encourage people to start getting out really early before UVA starts, so they're preparing their skins, and they could gradually start increasing the time through which they're exposing themselves to sunlight. But not only this, at some point during the day, if they feel that it's too much sunlight, they could seek some shades, they could put some clothes on. All of these natural ways of protecting themselves from sunlight could work much better from putting sunscreens. And it's interesting that the more chemical compounds we have in our skin, the less actually we are able to absorb light through the skin, which can cause us to burn much faster, because UV light is actually not being absorbed and it's bouncing off the skin because of all these chemicals, whether it's from our shampoos or whether it's from like aesthetic products that we put on our face or on our skin. All of these could contribute actually to us like not being able to absorb light the way we usually do, which is very, very important aspect for mitochondrial functioning, so to speak. So what that means is anytime our mitochondria is strong, then we have more energy during the day, then we are able to metabolize foods in much more efficient ways, and so on. So this would be the fundamental thing that I would advise people to do.
Can I, just for, because I don't even fully understand it, what is mitochondria?
So mitochondria is the power engines in our body that produce ATP. So they, like when you eat food, mitochondria breaks down food, water, and oxygen, and it produces energy, CO2, and water. So it's basically, you could think of it as through photosynthesis, so to speak. Plants, they absorb light photonic energy from sunlight, and they store this energy, and in return, as a human beings, you eat this food, and it's a reverse process of what photosynthesis is. By eating this food, your mitochondria is actually processing this energy from plants that you're eating, and it's breaking them down into electrons and protons, which is like a tiny electric signal that actually is inducing ATP production and energy, which will get you going and which will allow you to do all the things that you do during the day, including us speaking right now. We're definitely using a lot of ATP and energy.
So other than getting, the light and everything else, what else can we do to support our mitochondria?
Well, sleep fundamentally is one of the most important times for mitochondria to repair. And this happens when we naturally produce the hormone melatonin. So the problem is that anytime we go to sleep and that we're stimulated, so to speak, that we are still in our alertness system, part of the nervous system, we actually miss on melatonin production. We miss on a lot of the growth hormone that needs a lot of darkness at night to be produced. So one of the most important things that we could empower ourselves with, along with getting a lot of sunlight, is actually committing to getting a lot of darkness at night. But not only this, like as a human beings, we like light is one of the most important and most fundamental things that stimulate our nervous system. But there are other aspects as well that stimulate our nervous system. So we need to rewire the consciousness of wakefulness and deep rest, so to speak, which represents itself in the seesaw of our nervous system between parasympathetic nervous system, the calmness part of the nervous system, and the sympathetic nervous system, which is more the alertness part of the nervous system. So we need to start wiring habits that actually balance out this seesaw and allows us to be equally in our parasympathetic states at night as much as we are in our sympathetic alert states in the morning. So basically what that looks like is like anytime like the sun has set, this is the time for active recovery. And I love to call it active recovery because it's not a passive process, so to speak. And so many people fall into passive recovery unconsciously, which happens that their body becomes so tired and they would seek out ways such as watching Netflix or mind-numbing things for them to calm their nervous system. Whereas we could empower ourselves with habits and ways that will actually induce our nervous system to actively recover, such as making fire at night, watching a candle, reading a book that is not stimulating, practicing tantric practices with your partner, taking a hot bath, doing all of these practices that actively empower our nervous system to be in a state of recovery, so to speak.
I feel it, at night, a little bit of work, stressful, that momentum at the end of the day. And then you're like, around 2-3 o'clock every day, I kind of feel like this drop in energy. I've heard that it could be changes in like the sun changing with the light frequency at the end of the day. Or maybe my body's getting more fatigued as I'm getting older. I don't know what's going on, but is there a shift in the afternoon? And also like certain places, like here or in Sydney, there was no sunset until like 8:30 at night. And so
quite good sleep, so. And
then the sun was then up a little bit later too. So like, what should you change based on where you are in the world as well?
Well, definitely, like our body will definitely be in tune with the season, one, and second with the latitude on Earth. So where we are and how much light we're getting throughout the day. But then interesting thing that you're mentioning, that your body like is kind of like experiencing a drop of energy in the afternoon. And like based on our understanding of the nervous system, we all have our peak times during the day where we're most alert, when we're most focused, and when it's ultimate for us to actually be learning and doing productive things and even going through neuroplasticity. But then there are other parts of the day when it's ultimate for us to actually listen to our body, and if we're feeling tired, to take this time to actually rest. But more importantly, I love the concept of, now we know that neuroplasticity is possible. We thought for so many years that it's only possible with kids up to the age of 25. But now we know that like the brain can change itself and that we are actually able to change the way we think, the way we behave, and the way we feel through neuroplasticity. But then there's a dirty secret to neuroplasticity, that none of the neuroplasticity happens when we are actually learning and when we are focusing. It actually happens in non-sleep depressed and in sleep states. So by the time we're actually in our calmness part of the nervous system. So having said so, anytime we're trying to be creative, anytime we're trying to learn something new, whether it's a language, whether we're trying to change a habit, whether we're trying to change the way we think, we need to understand that this happens ultimately through the time when we're most alert and most focused, because this process requires alertness, requires a lot of focus. But not only this, it's actually all the wiring and consolidation happens the time when we are in non-sleep depressed and in deep sleep. So a great example of this, it's called the Alt-Radian Rhythm. It has been shown that an Alt-Radian Rhythm is composed of 90 minutes, within which we are most capable of achieving higher states of focus and alertness. And within this 90 minutes frame, we have so much energy to learn new things, to do all the productive things that we want to accomplish during the day. But then what determines how much we're going to actually be able to wire from what we learn throughout this 90 minutes is the 20 minutes after this 90 minutes, where we go into a full state of rest and recovery and disengage our mind and focus from what it's called DPO, duration, path, outcome, which happens organically anytime we're trying to learn something. So basically, like in summary, we need to start respecting this seesaw of the nervous system, and we need to start implementing ways that could equally empower our bodies to take this rest and rejuvenation times, and equally as much as we want to be focused and alert and productive.
It makes so much sense. Of course, that level of alertness, maximize, we're very much morning people, and we take, do a lot. And then 2, 3, 4 o'clock, I'm like, I need a rest. I just need to lay down. I don't know. So maybe that is my circadian rhythm or whatever shifting, and I need to do more things like massage, or as you mentioned, baths and rest and read a book or just have a nap.
Go swim in the ocean.
Yeah, swim in the ocean, and that's really interesting. And so, the Alt-Radian Rhythm, so Ultradin, Alt-Radian, which is all about chronobiology, which is this light biology, right? Which is this rhythm throughout the day. And so by then getting that, when you're most focused, if you're wanting to change, as you said, different emotional patterns or habits, the change is happening when we sleep. So if we're not sleeping, we're not really changing our brain as effectively.
Well, yeah,
it's really interesting.
It happens when we're sleeping and when we're going into non-sleep depressed, which is a state through which you're actually focused on nothing, and you're diverging. You're actually diverging your focus into like nothing in particular, where you're like really expanding your awareness into nothingness, so to speak. And the way I like to do this, anytime rewiring or learning a new language or learning a new skill, I take a 90-minute frame through which I ultimately focus. But then after this 90 minutes, I commit to 20 minutes, so to speak, where I put my blackout sleeping mask that we have also in Viva Rays. I also put my beeswax earplugs, and I kind of go into a sensory deprivation, so to speak. I lay on the ground, I put the mask on, the earplugs on, and I disengage my mind from any type of focus or narrowed attention. And I find that it's actually within those 20 minutes of non-sleep depressed that I'm actually able to come back into another cycle of 90 minutes, much more productive and much more capable of like achieving what I want to achieve throughout the day.
Wow. So when you're laying on the ground then doing this, are you then just laying inside your house? Are you going outside, or I guess you wouldn't, would you be outside? Because then your body wouldn't be aware of your surroundings, correct?
Well, for this
Similarly.
particular exercise, I actually do it inside while
Yeah.
laying on the ground. So there's not much like pull with gravity, like versus when you're sitting.
Yeah.
And I try to do all the things that will disengage my senses, such as putting the blackout mask and blocking my ears completely and going into deep breathing, so to speak, where I'm not focused on anything in particular.
Wow. That's amazing. There is like two other questions that have been asked for me to ask you as well. One is around how does coffee affect the mitochondria, and getting the amount of sunlight that we should be getting throughout the day, does that increase the sex drive?
Totally. So we can start with coffee. Coffee is definitely like, it wakes us up and it makes us more alert. The problem is we could, like, depending on the person, for instance, myself, I don't use coffee at all. And I'd rather do cold showers and be out in the sun, which I find much more efficient, and it works much better for me. Now, some other people could do really well with coffee, and it has been shown also that coffee increase some of the neuromodulators such as dopamine, the happy hormone that is responsible for motivation and seeking things outside of us. But then the problem is we don't want to rely on coffee to be the main trigger to awakening us in the morning and to be the main trigger to actually trigger our circadian rhythm. We want to take natural light and be light and have light being like the first trigger to our central clock. And then if we want to add and supplement with a little bit of coffee, that's totally fine. And so many people do really well with it. The only concern is we need to also take in consideration that coffee will stay in the body for about 8 to 12 hours. So being really careful with drinking coffee late in the afternoon, because this is going to cause less of quality sleep, so to speak. So that's the answer about coffee. The second part of the question.
So just before we move on, I've heard that the coffee can also dehydrate the mitochondria?
Well, there is an argument that coffee could dehydrate the mitochondria, and I first heard that from Dr. Jack Kruse. And I'm personally not a coffee drinker, and I haven't experimented personally with this. I'm often like a very curious mind that like to experiment. Like I do hear a lot of hypotheses, so to speak, and I usually take those on and I run those on experiments for a while before making a conclusion. So in particular for this point, I don't have a solid conclusion whether it does or not. I understand through the way Jack Kruse articulates it that a certain type of coffee could actually causes dehydration in the mitochondria. And I haven't personally experimented with that, or I haven't had anyone in my surroundings also experimenting with this.
Are you talking about the specific strains of coffee that could be doing it, or you're saying that there's a specific part of every coffee? But you
from my understanding is that like the quality of the coffee will has also an effect. So high grade organic coffee, and that is also balanced with things such as reishi and whatnot, which alkalize the coffee more, could be less of a dehydrating effect on the skin and on the mitochondria, whereas other types of coffee could have much more of a dehydrating effect. But again, I haven't experimented much with that, and I haven't investigated this particular thing a lot. So yeah.
That's awesome. Before we actually move on to the more of the sex drive part, there is one thing. Anyone that is wanting to get off of coffee, I drink coffee every single day.
Not every day, less now.
I said I was.
Oh, you were. Yeah, you
was.
were. Okay,
I've changed
was.
now. I haven't really much this year. But prior to that, I drank coffee that much that at one point I was drinking 4 to 6 cups a day because of my startup. This is when I wasn't doing the 3 a.m. wake up, 3:30 a.m. wake up. This is prior to that. And this is where I knew I needed to change what I was doing. Was my nervous system got to a point of breaking point. I went and ordered my first cup of coffee during the day because I was working like 16-hour days, 7 days a week. Went to sip my coffee and I couldn't. It made me want to vomit. And I was like, this is weird. Like, I wanted the coffee. And then from that day, I just cut it cold. And I went to the doctor. I was like, something really odd's happened. I go to an integrated doctor who's now his license been revoked, but hopefully we're going to get him on. And he actually said to me, you're nervous. You're like a ticking time bomb. Your nervous system is literally about to break. So you either stop drinking coffee or you can start drinking it again. But one of the, I actually forgot where I was going with that. But one of the interesting things was when I stopped drinking coffee, I created my own version of it. So I still got my own like hit of coffee, but it's not coffee. So if anyone's looking for a good little recipe, Zac and I have actually put together a little product for it now, and we're going to be launching it soon. But it just allows you to, and it has all the good stuff. It has like clay, which sounds really weird, but I made it taste yummy. Even Zac likes
like
it.
diatomaceous earth and clay and fossil shell flour and, you know, these amazing herbs
like,
and things.
All different things.
It tastes very similar to coffee. You know, as a coffee lover, it was a good transition.
I wouldn't say it tastes exactly the same, but it kind of gives you that feeling of having that warm hit in the morning. You know, because I think a lot of the time you get addicted to that as well. It's like having that warm drink, but tea doesn't satisfy you. And some people don't like hot chocolate. So this is like the medium in between, which really, really helps. But yeah, so if anyone's wanting to look at a recipe or anything, just reach out to Zac or myself and we'll be happy to help you. But yeah, please can we go on to kind of the sex drive part? Because this is something that Zac's mentioned to me before, but I don't actually understand how that works.
Well, from my understanding, and I first started to investigate this through a book I was reading. It's called Light is the Medicine of the Future. Light Medicine of the Future. The guy was breaking down a lot of the myth about UV light and where that originated from. And the reason why I'm mentioning UV light is because it has been shown that UVA is actually what improve our sexual hormones and drive and libido. And there has been some studies on mice and whatnot, so showing that UVA exposure has a big impact on our sexual hormones and drive, and on our libido as well. And another really interesting part also, it's also very well known right now in science that UVA increase nitric oxide production, which dilate the vessels and which improve the way we breathe and the way we absorb nutrients into our bloodstream. But also another part of that, nitric oxide production is also related to our sexual drive and sexual hormones. So I think that fundamentally UVA plays a major role in that, but also UVB, which is the main component for us to produce vitamin D, and vitamin D not being actually a vitamin, it's more of a hormone that allows us to absorb nutrients and to absorb and that activates enzymes in our body that makes us actually much more efficient in the way we absorb food. But not only this, it also increases our sexual drive and libido.
That's amazing. So anyone that's having relationship issues, both get into sunlight.
Get naked, get into the sun.
And the trick there is like UV light, and sadly, so many people are blocking UV light with sunglasses or with being behind windows. And interestingly, in nature, there's an amazing balance between UVA and UVB. And basically, UVA comes with UVB to balance out the amount of vitamin D that we're producing from sunlight, so it's not toxic. So it's not overdosing or overproducing vitamin D. But there's an interesting piece of information is that anytime we're behind windows, most of the windows, based on my my testing and measuring through using spectrometers, we realized that a lot of these windows allow UVA, but allow none of the UVB. So basically, you're actually becoming much more deficient on vitamin D. It's because of this imbalance in the ratio of UVA, UVB. Anytime you're behind windows, you're getting UVA, you're not getting UVB. And one of the roles of UVA is actually to balance out the vitamin D levels in the body, so it's not too much. So in long story short, when you're behind the window getting UVA, you're actually decreasing your vitamin D levels, and you're not getting vitamin UVB, which allow you to make vitamin D. So you become more deficient on vitamin D.
That's insane.
This is why, I recommend everybody get outside. If you're working, get an extension cord, do your work outside with your laptop. We're around a lot of entrepreneurs, and I think a lot of people are burning out, and their sleep cycle is totally, we're young now, but if this cycle of up with the sun, down with the sun isn't maintained now, surely it's going to cause burnout as we get older. We've never lived through this level of burnout or this level of unnatural habits in our world. It's the most disconnected from nature life time on earth. And so, this is more than ever a reminder, and it just makes sense. It's common sense, foundational.
It's intuitive.
It's intuitive. It's abundant. It's free. Why haven't we been educated on this stuff before? Like, surely if this is helping our sex drive, it's helping, because I've even heard women who are struggling with getting, pregnant, and their hormones are not actually falling pregnant, or men, with just everything in the body. This is supporting everything, even gut health, brain health. We're talking about massive topics of depression or, losing weight and things like this. No one's educated us on this light diet. So why?
Totally. And this is why we're doing it now. And this is why this big part of our mission is to make sure that people have the understanding of how to use light and when to use light. And part of what you bring there is, I've encountered many people who have the belief that, blue light is bad. And this is because of a lot of advertising from blue light blocking companies that, you need to block blue light and blue light is bad. However, we don't want to fall back into the same mentality of reductionism and thinking that, UV is bad, so we start wearing sunglasses. So to demystify this and bring some clarity to anyone who's listening to this right now, blue light is not good or bad. Blue light is blue light, and it's the context within which we're exposed to this light that makes it good or bad. In fact, we need a lot of blue light during the day, and especially the blue turquoise part of the spectrum, because this has been shown to actually trigger our sensory clock and to allow our adrenal gland to produce healthy cortisol and to get us going, get us moving, get us productive, get us creative throughout the day. So there's the danger of actually blocking too much blue light during the day, which I see often from so many different companies advertising the yellow tinted glasses. Now, the problem with that is these glasses block 100% of blue light up to 450 nanometer. So we're falling back into the same reductionist mindset of eliminating blue, whereas we don't want to eliminate blue. We actually want so much of the blue during the day, but then we want it from sunlight because it's balanced from other colors. But when we are exposed to blues from screens and from artificial light sources, then we want to make sure that we are wearing glasses that transform this odd peak in blue into more of a natural and distributed colors across the spectrum. But we don't want to block it, because anytime we block it, we're actually causing our circadian rhythm to be confused because it's not getting this dose of healthy blue light throughout the day. And this is exactly why our daytime lenses do not block blue light. And we actually design them so they transform the odd peak in blue emitted from LED into more of a natural and balanced spectrum that looks more like sunlight. And even within that, we encourage people that if they are in a room that is dominated by artificial light, we ask them to put our daytime glasses and also encourage them to take sun breaks, so to go outside from time to time. But then people need to really be careful with blocking, with using those highly yellow tinted glasses during the day and thinking that they are doing something good and protecting their eyes. In reality, they are actually causing themselves to have a circadian rhythm mismatch because, again, I mentioned it in the beginning of the podcast. I said retinal sensitivity is very low during the day, which means we need a lot of bright and blue light so our clock knows that's daytime.
This is a perfect segue. So really, how are your glasses different to the others out there? One, the daytime being that they allow you to have that exposure to the blue light, which is what we want. We want that excess bright light. But how else are the glasses different to most?
Yeah, so like the way we designed the glasses, it was with the consciousness of creating a holistic system, okay, that actually allow people to fully align with the naturally changing colors in nature. So we go from full wakefulness when the sun is up during the day to actually winding down when the sun is setting around sunset, and then to deep sleep when it's dark outside. So we wanted to create a system that mostly mimic this natural transition in colors that our brains and bodies are hardwired to respond to. So this is exactly why our daytime glasses do transform the harmful light coming from artificial light sources and makes it more of a natural balanced light. And as well as this, we created something called the evening glasses, which I like to describe them in a sense where, like, I invite people to visualize themselves around a fire, and basically by the beginning of the fire, you still like have a lot of energy. You feel like relaxed and calm, but you have enough energy to cook, to dance, to celebrate with friends. So this is mostly like a sunset feeling or a beginning of a fire feeling. And that would look like a lot like our evening glasses, where you wind down, your nervous system start calming down, but then you have still enough energy and momentum to cook, to do your work, and to still function, drive, do all of the things that you need to do. Now, by the end of the fire, when it's like red coals, you'll probably be feeling cozy, drowsy, and super ready to go to bed. And this is how I describe our nighttime glasses, where they block 100% of the blue and the green, and they decrease the brightness substantially. So people are empowered by a tool that will allow their brains to get the right signal of light from their environment, and enabling them to actually sleep better. And not only this, but to wake up with this like springness and with this energy. And basically this is why we have created the system that moves from daytime to evening to nighttime.
And if anyone wants to jump over to his website, and how can people stay in touch with you as well? Would love to, you're a wealth of knowledge. We'll probably have to get you back on another time. But Vivarays, VIVARAYS.com. And it's going to be around this video somewhere if you're looking at the recording. But yeah, this is a great investment in your health. You know, friends and family, get a couple of pairs for those that you care about. And it's something that it becomes part of the routine, whether you're out at dinner, whether you're, you know, at a restaurant, in the supermarket at nighttime. Those lights are so traumatic. Or whether you're at the gym at nighttime, or you're working at nighttime, or watching a movie. These are things that we should be wearing to protect our eyes, to deepen our sleep. So
just even sometimes walking into the office, like the first time I experienced a migraine was walking into a harsh light. I was like, what is going on? I end up collapsing to the ground. And I was like,
Right.
whoa, never experienced this before. But it was only that one intensive light
yeah,
that used to cause it.
and
Actually, next time we go on together, I'd love to have my spectrometer with me, and then we could run a few tests showing people actually the wavelength that is emitted by phones and by different lamps, and kind of like diving deeper and explaining into like where the problem is coming from, and that would be also like coming like with the consciousness of thinking about the time of the day, because the same light that could be problematic at night could be actually super beneficial during the day. So that's one very important thing. I also want to invite anyone who's watching to check us out on Instagram, Viva Rays, and on Facebook. This is where we share a lot of the educational material that I'm talking about. And we're very committed to empowering people with knowledge and with tools so they can make choices that best support their health, their sleep, and their circadian rhythm. And they could also shoot us a message, and we are happy to send them our ebook. It's called Light, the Key to Mastering Your Sleep and Energy. Wow. And we're sending it out for free. We actually had a landing page where people could go subscribe and get the ebook. The landing page is not on right now. It's going to be on very soon. But if anyone wanted the book until then shoot us a message on Instagram, and we are happy to send you the book. It's actually like about 70 to 80 pages. It's a very quick read, but then it's packed with information that will empower your sleep, your energy, and that will give you a much deeper understanding on how to use light to get healthier and to get much happier and much more productive.
This is awesome.
That would be amazing.
This has been super insightful. This has been a lot of fun. I've learned so much. You know, this is great for beginners if you want to share this out with your friends and family, guys. And yeah, really appreciate your time. Any final comments or words of wisdom for everyone at home?
Well, I want to thank you for having me here. And it was really fun to have a conversation with you both and to get to know you more. And I'm actually looking forward to probably having another sesh together where we could deepen the language and what's being shared, and we can share some really cool stuff with some tools. I consider tools to be like really empowering, because it could provide people with a visual understanding of facts and what's actually there, versus like, you know, a subjective opinion about what's happening. So yeah.
That would be great.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be really good. Stay tuned, guys. And this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been awesome fun. I think this just kind of backs up the theory that I put out yesterday of, you know, I've kind of had this really big calling to get back to nature, and like being around buildings, being around like even in this house, everything just feels really toxic. It feels really fake. And it just shows that how interconnected we are to nature and how important it is to like look after our environment and to get that sunlight and to be immersed in it, because we are humans, we are animals, we are meant to be also in the wild. It's not, you know, man-made things are man-made for a reason. So, you know, really going back to true foundation is getting back into nature where we're meant to be.
Totally. And, you know, Frankie, like one of the things that I always tell people is like, one of my core missions is to live in a world where people do not need our glasses anymore. Like anytime I close my eyes, I could see a world that is fully in alignment with nature's light, and where we have easy access for peak energy and performance during the day through a lot of healthy light, and easy access to active recovery and sleep and an environment that empowers that at night through a lot of darkness. and ambient light. I do think that, you know, the restaurant of the future is not going to be only assessed through their menu and the quality of food. Is going to be also assessed through the quality of lights that they use. I do think that the schools are going to adopt a new way of actually putting lights on. And I do think that the Airbnb of the future is also going to be the most successful when actually they're attending to the light diet and empowering, you know, renters with environments that supports their sleep, that supports their recovery. And I hope everyone who's listening could tune into this mission. And I do believe in the power of us, that the more people know about this, the more people start living and experiencing this, the more it starts rippling out.
That has definitely sparked something inside of our mind just then. You know, this puts a whole nother meaning to walking in the light, walking towards the light. You know, this is, and yeah, creating a whole new.
Well, we are light.
We are light, right? Food is light particles, you know, packets, we're light. And so this just is such a great reminder to get back in touch with nature. And we totally support that vision. Yes, house ratings, the value of a house should be valued on how well it is connected to nature, you know, or your rent, if it's more disconnected from nature, you pay less rent. So I really love that concept. So again, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you very, very soon. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Awesome.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.